Okay, Algebra 1. Today we're going to talk about factoring a trinomial x squared plus bx plus c. Now, we have already introduced you to this concept with our cowboy hat puzzles that we did last week. So let's just talk about even what factoring means whenever you're using a trinomial. Last chapter we learned how to multiply two binomials by each other to get an answer of, this would be x squared plus 5x plus 6. So we've learned how to multiply binomials. Now we're going to learn how to take this trinomial and make two binomials or two factors from the trinomial. So if I was given x squared minus 14x plus 40, I know that I'm looking for two binomials as factors, and here they are down here, x minus 10 and x minus 4. Okay? So let's go ahead and let's start to think about how we could come up with these two binomials, these two factors. Notice that when you multiply x plus 2 and x plus 5, the constant term in the trinomial is the product of the constants in the binomial. So when we're talking about the constant term, that's 10. We know that 10 comes from multiplying 2 times 5. Think back to your cowboy hat. We put the multiplied number or the product in the top. So that would be 10. Right? So what do 5 and 2 add up to? Well, they add up to 7, and that would be your bottom term. So we know that our two terms are 2 and 5. Is this bringing back some good memories? That this middle number here, the second term in our trinomial, is coming from adding up 2 and 5. Let's try one out. Okay, we've got x squared plus 15x plus 36. The first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to take my 36, and I know that that comes from multiplying the last two numbers, and I'm going to put it in the top because my product always goes on top. I'm going to take my 15, that's where my sum is, and I'm going to put my sum on the bottom of my x. So now I'm thinking, what two factors of 36, and I'm also looking here at this digit that it's positive 36 and this is positive 15 because that's very important information. What two factors of positive 36 when added together give me 15? Well, I'm thinking factors of 36, 1 and 36, no. 2 and 18, no. 3 and 12, got to be 3 and 12. So my two factors are 3 and 12. I'm going to fill out my t with x and x because I have an x squared, so I know each one of my terms is going to, or each one of my binomials, is going to start with x. I'm going to put these guys on the bottom, 3 and 12. So my two terms, or my two binomials, are x plus 3 and x plus 12. Ms. Sokolowski will be better able to explain it.
Whatever. Okay, so here we have g squared minus 3g minus 18. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in my x, just as we did on the cowboy hat worksheet. To get this top number in your x right here, you are going to multiply the first coefficient of the x squared term, or in this case the g squared term, times this last number, negative 18. So this number that goes in the x here is going to be 1 times negative 18, which is negative 18. The bottom number in the x comes from the middle term. The middle term always gets written in the bottom. Now I come up with what two factors multiply to give me negative 18, but add to give me negative 3. What would those be? Well, after a little bit of thought, you guys should come up with negative 6 and 3. Negative 6 times 3 is negative 18. Negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. So now I'm going to come over here to my t to finish out my problem. Notice this is tx, Texas. All right, so I'm going to take the first coefficient and the first variable, 1 and g, and those go at the top of my t. Underneath that goes these two numbers. They just get carried over and they're going to get written right underneath, negative 6 and 3. Now what you want to do is you want to look at each of these two things separately and see if they can be simplified or reduced. Think of them like fractions even though they are not fractions. If it can be reduced, like a fraction can be reduced, you want to do that. In our case, 1 over negative 6 cannot be reduced or simplified, so I am simply going to write that as my first binomial. My second binomial would be 1g plus 3. Now, do you need to write the 1's in front? Absolutely not. Can you? Absolutely yes. So this would be my answer. Now, how can I check that answer to make sure I didn't make a mistake? Well, apply what we learned last chapter and distribute each term 4 times. You're going to distribute the property 4 times and make sure you end up with the answer that we started with, which was g squared minus 3g minus 18. All right, last example. Let's do it one more time. I'm going to take the 1 in front of the b squared and multiply that times my last number. 1 times negative 20 gives me negative 20. This middle term is a 1, so that goes right there at the bottom. What factors multiply to give me negative 20 that add to give me 1? That's going to be 5 and negative 4. Now that I have those, I start making my t. I carry the first coefficient 1 with the letter, the first variable, b. So 1b and 1b. I take these two numbers and put them right underneath, 5 and negative 4. Then I look to see if I can simplify those. 1 over 5 cannot be simplified, so that just gets written as b plus 5. And then my next binomial is going to be 1b minus 4, or just simply b minus 4. Those would be the two binomials that multiplied together give me the product b squared plus b minus 20. Hope that makes sense. See you tomorrow.